Hi guys, this is Michelle Nicolaisen from Bombshell and Let's Radiate, and today I am interviewing my good friend Melissa Dinwiddie from Living a Creative Life, who is a passion pluralite. She's like a professional does everything woman, and it's pretty awesome. And she's also got this new program coming up called Time to Glow. So we were going to talk about some of the things then in her experience and in her knowledge that helps women really glow. Uh, so Melissa, can you give a quick introduction of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm an artist and an inspirationalist. And my superpower is helping people really live the fully creative lives of their dreams. So a lot of that involves mindset shifts and giving yourself permission to do the creative things that give you joy, that you really want to be doing, that frequently we have so much programming around that we find it hard to do, or we face resistance that gets in our way. And my job is to help people bust past that resistance and deprogram the programming that tells them that they shouldn't or can't do the things that give them joy, specifically creative things. That's my big passion.
Yeah. Yeah, and so when I was talking to you through email, like, and we were setting up this interview and stuff, you were talking about the three specific ingredients that you see as being the most helpful to creating mindset shifts and creating major transformation, and they were a role model and a supportive community and the right tools. And I was wondering if you could go over those three ingredients and maybe break that down, like what those things really look like for you in your experience and how they create this ripple effect when they're working together.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first ingredient is role model. And in my own life, I have seen the shifts that have happened when I've seen somebody else who's actually doing the thing that I want to do. Before I had a role model to help to point the way, or before anybody has a role model, it can be really easy to just assume that it's not possible to do something.
Yeah.
This happened for me in a really big way just a couple of years ago. It was the catalyst that led me to start my blog and to really go after living the fully creative life that I really wanted when I discovered Chris Guillebeau. Here was somebody who was actually doing what he really loved and using that to make a difference and to make a living, and a really nice living. And there are lots of people out there who are doing it, but for some reason they hadn't landed on my own radar at a time when I was really able to see them. And Chris landed on my radar when I was ready. I was burned out doing what I was doing. I was actually making my living from my art, but I was not really doing the kind of art that fed my own soul.
Yeah.
And I really, and just seeing Chris having that role model made me realize, oh my God, maybe it is possible to live the life I really want rather than the settling life, the next best, okay, I'll take this one because the other one's not available life.
Yeah. That's so cool. And Chris is one of my favorites too. He's such a genuinely nice guy. I find like there's so many guys in the entrepreneur or blogosphere, and I'm not saying that they're all like obnoxious or anything, but there are a lot of really obnoxious guys, and it's like, you're smart, but I can't even listen to a word you say because I just want to like claw your eyes out while you're talking. And Chris is the total opposite of that, and he's so nice and so genuine. So I can definitely see how he would land differently.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what you said is actually a big part of it too. It was not just that here's somebody who's doing what they love and making a living from it, but here's somebody that I can relate to, who's a really cool, authentic, genuine, nice person who's not stepping on people to get where he wants to go, but is making a difference and using his creativity to get where he wants to go and impact the world. And I was like, oh my God, it opened up this whole world of possibility for me. So that, for me, that is like the first thing that has to be there, is having a role model to sort of lead the way or just point the way. It doesn't even have to be somebody that you know necessarily. It can be somebody that you know of.
Yeah. just someone that you know about. And I know, like, for me, like, I love Chris too. For me, one of the people that I found when I was like very first getting into the online world, because I grew up, so I like to say I grew up on the internet, which is kind of sort of true. Was Danielle Laporte, and I remember I found Style Statement, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then I found White Hot Truth, and I was just like, I didn't even know this was like a thing. Like, I didn't know it was doable. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And then the next ingredient is community. And I think everybody's probably had the experience of feeling like other people in their life just don't get them. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to talk to people about what you're doing, whether it's trying to be an artist or create something that hasn't been created before, or making an online business or something. If there's nobody in your world who really gets that, it's really, really hard. Even if you have supportive family and friends in your life, if they don't really get what you're trying to do, if they don't understand that path that you're on, it's really hard to do it yourself. And just having even one or two other people who are walking a similar path alongside you is so powerful. And I've been leading what I call creative ignition circles for the past year or so, and witnessing the transformation that happens in these small groups with just by creating the space for people to come together and talk about the stuff that's getting in their way and get support, even just being a sounding board, from the other people who are in the group, is so profoundly powerful and transformative. That to me feels like an absolutely essential component for making the kinds of mindset shifts that will allow you to really dream those big dreams, and not just dream them, but actually make them happen. Like, go from dreaming to doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I totally agree with that too. And it's funny because, like, that's something that I've noticed too, is that, like, if you're talking to friends or family or boyfriend or girlfriend or whoever, and it's like they usually want to support you, but there is only so much support they can give if they understand it, if they don't know what's going on, and if they don't know, like, why it's a big deal that so and so retweeted you, or that you got a guest blog on whatever, like, they're just like, that's cool. I don't know what it means, but I see that you're happy. So,
Exactly. Well, it's just like, for people like us who are building businesses online, it's really important for us to be able to communicate with and connect with other people who are doing similar things, even if the topic or the theme or whatever, the kinds of products and services that we're creating are totally different. We have a common language, right? And it's to say, if you think about, like, if a bunch of women wanted to work on the stuff that gets in the way of them leading big lives, it would not be tremendously helpful for them to get together in a co-ed group, right? Because they wouldn't, the guys, I love guys, and guys have stuff that gets in their way as well, but it's different stuff. And so the language would just be different, and the women wouldn't feel the same sense of safety about talking about their issues if there were guys in the group. Nothing against guys, but for women to work on the stuff that gets in the way of their living big lives as women, they need to get together with other women. So what I do is I bring creatives together, because there's something about really working to incorporate creative expression into your life, whatever that expression is, whether it's writing, art, acting, anything, any kind of creative expression. There's just a common language, because the oppressions, the things that get in the way, the stumbling blocks are really similar, regardless of what it is you're trying to create and express through your creativity.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And that's really interesting things like that you observed about the common language, and that sometimes like the example you used was co-ed groups. I'm sure I feel like I actually experienced this in something that wasn't necessarily a co-ed group. There was like a similar dynamic where people just didn't like they just didn't have quite the same experience just because of like who
Yeah.
they were, their background or whatever.
Yeah, well,
But
we belong to so many different sort of constituencies as human beings, right? You know, like I'm a woman, I'm Jewish, I'm white, I grew up middle class, you know, all of these things, the people who have similar experiences in their background in any one of those different constituency groups, we're just going to be able to relate to each other in a unique way that creates a certain sense of safety, right?
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Actually, I think I do remember what it was. For a while, I was part of like a local women's bloggers group, and I stopped going before too long. Not, well, partially because it was really hard for me to get to some of the meetups with the locations, but a big thing was that a lot of the women who were there were like fashion bloggers who were still in college. And like I went to college for like a semester and I dropped out, and I've been essentially living on my own since I was 18. Not because my parents kicked me out or anything. My parents have always been very supportive, but that's just what I did. And so it was really, really hard for me to go to these meetups and like I mean, like when we were talking about blogging, there was some things in common, but the rest of our lives were so different
Yeah.
because these are people who are the same age as me, who are 22 or 23, or I think I was like 21 at the time. They're the same age as me, but they still have their parents paying all the bills. Like if they have a part-time job, it's to get leeway to get an internship later. Like they don't have the experience of paying bills on their own, of living in the real life, of handling all the stuff that comes along with it. And so it was really bizarre. It was really bizarre for me because I'm like, I don't even know how to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
And
I
it
can
wasn't
totally see that.
Yeah, well, and it's like it wasn't that they were bad people. They were all very, very nice. It was just like just a totally weird, I want to say barrier, and I don't know if that's the right word, but I definitely agree with you that having communities who are built up, not just of people who want to support you, but of people who have a strong shared experience with you is huge.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. And then the third ingredient that I talk about is the right tools, effective tools. And by tools, I don't mean hammers and nails and stuff like that. Although those can be, useful tools for certain things, obviously. But I'm talking about specific concepts and understandings that can really shift your mindset. So let me think of an example. Okay, here's a great example. Oftentimes it happens that maybe you have a really big goal, a dream that you want to accomplish, and you find yourself like not going after it because there's this voice in your head that says, oh, you'll never be able to do that, or you're not good enough, or you need to go back to school first before you have the creds to be able to do that, or nobody's going to pay attention to you. Well, without an understanding that's just your inner critic gremlin, without that understanding, you might believe those voices and you might take direction from those voices. In fact, many times, I've done that because that inner critic gremlin feels like the voice of truth and not the voice of my inner critic gremlin.
Yeah.
And so a tool is just to be able to, one of the tools that I teach in Time to Glow is just to be able to recognize when is that voice, when is that those reasons why you can't or you shouldn't go after a particular goal. When is that reality and when is that the inner critic gremlin? And when you have that tool at your disposal to be able to discern when the inner critic gremlin is speaking, then you can notice it and decide not to take direction from it and keep going after those goals. So those are the kinds of tools that I'm talking about that are just, they're the kind of things that will create internal epiphanies and incredible transformations, like night and day transformations. Yeah. And when you get access to those kinds of tools in a supportive community, when you've got role models who you can look to, who are going after similar kinds of things that you dream of going after, it is absolutely amazing what you can accomplish.
Yeah. That's really cool. I was trying to think of something to add to that, and I'm like, no, she pretty much covered it all.
Yeah, so that's what I'm bringing to this Time to Glow program that I have created. And I'm so excited about this because this is work that I've been doing for myself in order to really live the creative life that I really, really want, which I'm finally doing in my life. It feels like it's taken so long to get there. And I've realized how much I've learned in the process of getting from, the person who thought, oh, I could never do X, Y, Z, to be living a life that I couldn't have even dreamed of. I mean, I literally couldn't have even imagined, 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing together all of everything that I've learned and my skills at facilitating groups and creating a safe space, because that's a real critical part of it as well, in order to make the kinds of transformations that are going to really, allow you to dream bigger and go after those dreams. It has to be in a safe environment,
Yeah. Yeah. And so when does that start?
The first session starts on May 24th, and today is, as we have this interview, I don't know when this is going live, but it's the 8th of May today, and the cart actually opens tomorrow, May 9th, and it's open through the 22nd.
Okay. So by the time you watch this, you can go buy your ticket, so you should do that. We can wait. So, is this something you're planning on running again, or is this like a one-time opportunity? Do you know yet?
Well, I do intend to run, it may not be exactly the same as this one, but I intend to take everything that I experience and learn from running this first program, and probably next year I'll offer it again with the input of everybody who's in this program. And I'm thinking that probably the people who do it this time will have access at either a lower price or some special way to participate again, because this is the kind of thing that the kinds of shifts and transformations that I'm designing this course to foster are things that it's like peeling layers off an onion. You can come back to the same material and find deeper and deeper layers and be ready for a movement that maybe you weren't ready for 6 months ago or a year ago.
Yeah.
It's really lifelong evolution.
Yeah. And it reminds me of Catherine at cashandjoy.com, how she talks about the spiral.
Yes.
The progress spiral, because that's how, and of course she talks about it specifically in business, but it's like I've noticed that with everything. And I know it's not just me. I remember I was reading an email from someone a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about money attitudes, and she was talking about how she had to really, really, really do a lot of serious internal work before she hit six figures. She had plateaued, and she couldn't figure out why, and she had to do all this internal work before she hit $100,000 a year. And then she found herself having to do that exact same work 2 years later to get to her next money stuck point, to get through that next thing she was having problems with.
Exactly.
So I definitely agree.
Yeah, I use the metaphor of a self-installed glass ceiling. That so much of so much of what limits us is our mindset. It's our belief system, right? And frequently, if you have a belief, you don't even know it's a belief. You just think it's reality. So, and to me, it's like having a glass ceiling above your head that you installed. And one of my big goals for Time to Glow is to help people shatter those glass ceilings. And you find that you get through one glass ceiling, and then lo and behold, there's another one that you have to shatter to get to the next level, right? So it's like that spiral that Catherine Kane talks about.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this interview. And everybody, you can find Melissa at www.melissadinwiddie.com.
Yeah, you can go there. That's my main domain, but I also redirects from livingacreativelife.com, which is a little easier to spell than my name.
Yeah, that might be easier to spell. And does Time to Glow have its own website, or is it at one of those? Or is it at that?
You can find it from my website.
Okay, cool. So that's where you need to go. Check out Time to Glow and check out our program. And even if you don't end up signing up for Time to Glow, definitely keep an eye on Melissa because she publishes a lot of really, really useful, insightful stuff on creativity.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.